continues to just blows my mind, Matt. Customer after customer we talk to, what they're doing in Excel is they're almost building software.
Oh yeah,
And it's
I wrote Tetris in Excel, so
yeah.
I don't know.
It's like they're creating they're basically posting an Excel spreadsheet somewhere, in a common area, and they almost create what looks like a UI in a sheet. And they're like, okay, you guys come in here and you fill this out, and you go to this tab and you fill this out. And sometimes one tab populates the other, and so forth and so on. And they have multiple people going into the same sheet, and co-authoring it.
Mhm.
Um,
It's
some folks
risky.
aren't even using that. It's not an enterprise, a viable long-term solution, but it's what they have, um, what's what they know, and it's what they have kind of at their disposal
Sure.
without having to call IT and create
Well,
something or
calling
spend.
IT and having them create stuff is expensive, not because
Yeah,
they have to pay for it, but because it's time consuming.
time
Well,
I
and
have
and
to.
and it doesn't necessarily get done, right? I mean, that's the
yeah.
thing.
They have
You
a lot. They
You
have a
they
can't
have
backlog.
long
address that
backlogs.
business process,
And
right?
that's why this self-service stuff I think is very interesting. And the low code, no code. And
Right.
we all know, and we've had a lot of internal discussions and debates about how far that can go. I think at the high level, it can start to replace some of the things like you're talking about, Brian, like some of this Excel stuff, because people can go in and they can start doing
Right.
something with the basic Power Apps, to do some smaller kind of prototyping and build maybe in smaller work group apps without
Right.
a whole lot of assistance from IT or a third party like us. When it starts to get bigger, though, and like we talked about
Yeah.
before, when you start to get into the people and process and technologies, and you start to develop kind of a software development lifecycle around this thing
Mhm.
that you're building, selecting the right components like Matt's talking about, then building the right processes around it and building the right, best practice development, so to speak, around
Mhm.
these things becomes a lot more important.
I think
Yeah,
that's the promise
for
of
sure.
it, Mike, right? Is
Hmm.
the ability for that same person that, is dangerous in Excel, and maybe can be dangerous in Power BI, to transfer some of those low code skills, their ability to, pull the community together, pull the business rules together, figure out the business rules, and build a Power App on their own. Now, there's I think that's the promise of it. And
Yeah.
there's some people out there that, they're equipped and they have enough information, they've watched enough YouTube videos to go do that. How can Matt, how can Innovative E help those folks that want to do that, but just kind of need to get a kickstart?
Well, it's a great question. There's a lot to it. Eh, Is it easy enough to go and add a custom field, create an entity? Sure. I mean, a lot of that's kind of point and click. I made this entity, I did this, I did that. But what what is not there, and as I said before, these are all building blocks,
Yeah.
right? You have to, before you can make an app, you need to have a data set. You need to have something in the CDS. And data
Hmm.
sets and how good they are and how they operate are really something that requires a little bit of forethought. And that's where your Excel folks might struggle, because Excel doesn't care about that. You do
Right.
whatever you want to do and you just kind of make it happen and it works itself out. But I need to have this entity related to this entity and that related to that entity. Well, some people might just start off with, I'll just make one big entity, which is
Right.
fine until you realize that you have too much data and now it doesn't operate well.
Right.
So now you should have broken it up. But now how do you get the data to talk to these all these different components, which is not intuitive? And then you start to say, okay, I need a Power Automate that says when something over here happens, I have to move something and rewrite and connect this data to that
Hmm.
data, because it's not necessarily just, it doesn't magically show up here. You can have one entity that's related to an entity and it's a parent and child, and it can absorb and expand off of that, but it's not, you just jump 2 feet into the pool and you're like,
Right.
I didn't know what I was expecting to find. So
Right.
that's before you
Mhm.
even get to the concept of building an app out. You just
Right.
figured out what your data looks like. So you start to do that. You get that in place.
So
So
if you
that's
have
how.
that pedigree and you come from, you take that mindset into it,
Mhm.
where you've built applications before,
Sure.
then you're really well equipped to hit the ground running here. But if you need some help, we've done that. We've been around the block in that regard, and we bring that mindset to the table, help expedite really the whole process of this.
That's exactly it. If you don't know, while you can get started quickly, if somebody already had a data model for you, this is where the paradigm of, I think Microsoft really wants people to go. I think what they want is, well, we want everyone to make an app, to be able to feel empowered to make an app.
To empower them, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, if you have nothing to work with, you don't have the pieces to make the app. So you need somebody, you either need to have the rigor in how you've already thought about building apps. So you've done it the hard way. You've done it coding straight up. And you can't do coding straight up unless you've thought about what is the end result, what's the process, what does it actually look like, what is the data model I'm trying to capture actually make sense. So if you have that, as you said, that skill set, then Power Apps, you can kind of get in. Then it's kind of a syntax thing here, a syntax thing here. What do I click? Oh, I need to move around here. You can kind of Google some of that stuff or Bing some of that stuff and figure it out. But if you don't have that and you don't have anybody that does that, well, now you need a little bit of a different story to help you out. And we do this all the time with people for Power BI. They have a database. They understand how to access a database. They don't understand how
build the visualizations.
To write SQL. To write SQL. And they don't understand DAX. And they don't understand some of the expressions that Power BI has in play because it's a whole other language. So what we can do to help people out is we can provide a data set in whatever tool you're using. So if it's SQL, we can provide a view or a couple of views or SQL code or a stored procedure to get to the data set you want. Therefore, you don't even need to know what's driving it underneath. You don't need to know this table versus that table. You just need to know, I need this, and now I have my data, and now I can go through and create my visualizations with the drag and drop components that everyone loves. But how do you get there? That you need
everybody
something to get
can
there.
be a Power Apps ninja with Innovative. Is that what you're saying?
Well, sure.